All right, it's 9 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. It looks like everyone's here this morning. Approval of January 28, 2019 minutes. Has everyone got a chance to review them? Is there any additions or corrections? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move approval as printed.
Second.
A motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Approval of today's agenda. If there's no changes to that, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. For those who are in the audience, if you don't have an agenda, there's agenda items on the back bookshelf. PJ.
Hi, PJ Conover, Director of Planning Department. Consent agendas. The following items have been placed on the consent agenda for action to be taken on all items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda by a planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration. Some of the findings of the planning commission are recommendations to the Pennington County Board of Commissioners, who will make the final decision. Item 3, conditional use permit review 0807 for Marilyn Welch to review a single-wide manufactured home as a single-family residence in the suburban residential district. Staff recommends to continue the review of conditional use permit 0807 to the May 13th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting in order to allow the applicant time to clean the property and bring it into compliance with Ordinance 106 and condition number 4. Item 4, conditional use permit review 1434 for James Witcher Land LLP to review a single-wide mobile home to be used as a permanent residence in a general agriculture district. Staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit 1434 with 7 conditions. Item 5, conditional use permit review 1525 for Rushmore Shadows LLC. Gene Adnick as the agent to review a recreational resort with the addition of 45 RV sites to the subject property in a highway service district. Staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit 1525 with 17 conditions. Item 6, conditional use permit review 1615 for Tom and Lynn Disler to review a recreational vehicle to be used as a temporary residence while building a single-family residence on the subject property in a limited agriculture district. Staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit 1615 with 9 conditions. Item 7, conditional use permit review 1730 for Daniel Johnson, Highmark Properties LLC, to review a multifamily residence to be used as a vacation home rental in a general agriculture district. Staff recommends to continue the review of conditional use permit 1730 indefinitely until such time the applicant can receive approval from the United States Forest Service for access across National Forest Service lands with 1 condition. Item 8, conditional use permit review 1749 for Don and Deborah Williamson to review 2 existing structures prior to a principal structure on a subject property in a low-density residential district. Staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit 1749 with 6 conditions. Item 9, construction permit review 1802 for Black Hills Energy to review the building of an existing 230 kV transmission line. The rebuild will consist of approximately 81 miles of 230 kV transmission line from the South Rapid City area to the Nebraska state line. Staff recommends approval of the extension of construction permit 1802 with 7 conditions. Item 10, construction permit 1901 for site work specialists to install public and private utilities to include water, sanitary, sewer, stormwater, common utility trench, power, communication, and gas. Also includes installation of concrete curb, gutter, and sidewalk to also include asphalt pavement. Staff recommends approval of construction permit 1901 with 15 conditions. Item 11, minor plan unit development amendment 1712 for Jeremy Cummings to review a gunsmithing business and a planned unit development. Staff recommends approval of minor plan unit development amendment review 1712 with 12 conditions. Item 12, minor plat MPL 1902 and subdivision regulation variance SV 1901 for Edward Hicks, Faith Lewis as the agent, to create Hicks tracks and to waive platting requirements in accordance with section 400.3 and 700.1 of the Pennington County subdivision regulations. Staff recommends approval of subdivision regulation variance 1901 and approval of MPL 1902 with 8 conditions.
Any item staff like pulled off the consent item?
No, sir.
Any items from the membership?
Sure, I'd like to pull number 7, please.
Item number 7
And I would like to discuss number 5.
and items number 5. Any other items to be removed from the consent calendar? All right, are there any members of the audience like any of these consent items removed for separate consideration? If so, this is the time to come forward and let us know. If not, it sounds like our consent agenda will be items 3, 4, 6, 8 through 12. If that is correct, I'd entertain a motion for that to be our consent agenda.
I so move.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 5, please.
Good morning, Brittany Molitor, Environmental Planning Supervisor. Did you have a specific question on
Well,
number
my,
5?
my concerns are, as I read through on page 3 of 7, the property history on September 5th, 2017, it appears as if there were a number of violations that they had already, expanded beyond that which had been approved. And I may have missed it, but I don't know if that was brought up to acceptable conditions, or if we're waiting, or,
They actually submitted many building permits, and what held up the approval of a lot of the building permits was the septic and the septic sizing. And so by them converting some of those sites and cabins to different, they converted
uses?
different uses. It kind of changed how we size and look at the septic. So they're in the process right now of upgrading those septics. There's 3 of them, 3 systems on that property that they're in the process of upgrading.
okay, will anyone follow up on it, or what is the procedure for making sure that they actually do this?
Right, well, we are reviewing this in 1 year, so that gives them, typically, they don't like to do a lot of the work during their busy season, so they're gonna start this spring and see how much that they can get done, and maybe next fall, so by our next review time, we'll have an status update.
Sure.
They've been, as a applicant, they've been very cognizant and very good about keeping in contact with us and working with our environmental planner on those.
Okay, whereas previously, I guess they weren't. I mean, in as much as
Sure,
they
and
exceeded it, does it have the same ownership?
no, and some of that was done under another owner.
I see,
So they're bringing it into compliance, and then they added those additional sites.
I see, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on this item? If not, current recommendation is to approve the extension of conditional use permit CU 1525 with 17 conditions. Is there a motion?
So move. Second.
Motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 7.
Item number 7.
And I did have just a specific question. I just am trying to understand where the right-of-way that they need, the access easement from the Forest Service actually is on the site plan. So I look at their site plan, which is on page 3, and I would like a little help understanding where that is.
It's right when they come into their property off of 385. It's a short distance, right when they enter their property.
Oh, so it's really not even showing on this site plan, then, is
No,
it?
and it's, like I said, I'm not sure how many feet it is. It's not a very long distance, but they do cross Forest Service lands. I did speak to the Forest Service last week. He actually came into the office with some of the government shutdown and things like that. They are behind. He said that it would probably be 2020 before that would be approved. It was actually approved under the old owners prior and then expired.
Yes, the landowner, at least, there's at least one house further down on that road. So they have an easement agreement that is still in place, I'm assuming?
They refiled without the other 2 on the agreement. So when they
Are the
went,
2 lots?
there's other owners down
I
from
see.
there, and they did a separate agreement with the Forest Service. So they have one in place, but the other owners do not.
I see, okay. All right, very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions on this item? Currently, the recommendations to, let's see, that was number 7. I was about to read the wrong one. Is to continue the review of conditional use permit CU 1730 indefinitely until such a time that the applicant can receive approval from the United States Forest Service for access across NSF lands with one condition.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. That takes us to item number 13.
Good morning, Cody Sack, planner. Item 13 is a construction permit review for construction permit 1812. The applicant, Bradley Nibel, applied for a construction permit to bring into compliance an existing violation on a subject property to level a hillside for a future residence. This will be the third time that it's in front of you. It was in front of you on November 13th, 2018, which it was continued. It was originally approved November 26th and then reviewed again on December 23rd, where it was extended. Since that time, the applicant went in front of the Board of Adjustments for the second approach on the property, which was denied by the Board of Adjustments. Since then, the approach has been removed. It does appear, though, that the applicant is not meeting conditions of approval from December 3rd. No erosion control measures have been implemented, which is condition 1. Cut and fill slopes have not been stabilized, condition number 2. There have been no inspection or forms submitted to the Planning and Zoning Office or its director, which is condition 3. No engineering design plans to stabilize this hillside have been submitted, which is number 6. And there is nothing in place to ensure sediment does not reach the right-of-way, which is condition number 7. Speaking with the applicant wants to end condition or construction permit 1812 because he says he cannot meet the obligation set forth by the conditions, but by ending it would create a violation on the property since the work has already been done and the area has been disturbed. So staff still recommends approval of the extension of construction permit 1812 with 14 conditions.
Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Rich.
what's the trigger from the county's perspective on if you have a non-compliant landowner? I mean, at some point, does the county step in and say we should go hire someone and then put a lien on the property, or what? How far do things progress before those types of issues happen?
There are no bonds or sureties on this construction permit. It's not a situation that we usually run into
Okay,
to get this far.
that's good.
For us, though, construction permits are more like a contract. If you want to disturb dirt, here's what you got to do it, which is why we do not recommend ending it. That's, it's not like it's a use on the property that they can just stop vacation or rentals. But to keep this ongoing helps us in our process to have something to measure his performance or lack of performance against.
Sure.
And then we would work through our ordinance officer for any of those violations that we can attribute to 106. But also, if they're not meeting conditions, then we can also bring it to the planning commission and also bring it to the board.
Okay.
Sorry. There is also provisions under our construction permit, under 507A, that does allow the planning director to require a bond or surety. And if that's something that this commission may add to a condition and direct the planning director to require that, that's also an option.
Okay. So from staff's perspective, you just like this permit to stay in place. It then gives you tools and avenues to continue to force the landowner to come into compliance.
It does. Without this, it would be a little bit more difficult.
Okay. Because at some point he has requirements for DENR and site stabilization and sediment transfer and those types of things, right?
Yeah. And I believe there was some discussion from staff with the highway department, and they were okay with what was in the ditch, at least with the removal of the approach.
Yeah, they didn't seem to have any concern with it filling in. I talked to Mark and Joe, and they said that if it created a high spot in there, that they'd be concerned, but it more looks like there's a low spot, and sediment will just fill that in, and it'll eventually just take care of itself.
So in other words, we're kind of on our own on this one.
So, but here's my concern is that we end up spending a lot of county resources and time and money. And then if we have to go in and fix some of this stuff, at what point does the landowner become liable for those costs.
There has been some other work on a adjoining property that the landowner did. The county spent over $40,000 going in and fixing. But but from my understanding and speaking with the staff that oversaw that they were going to go and do it anyway, so they never went back on the landowner for any money. As a property directly abutting it to the north there. It's also his property.
Any further questions?
No.
Commissioner LaCroy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thanks, PJ and staff, for bringing this forward. That is good to know about, that we could require a bond or surety to make sure this stuff gets done. I know me personally, I've had discussions with this property owner with stormwater runoff and from the past, and so it's not like these requirements are new to anybody. I mean, it's been going on for quite a while. I think it's just a flat out refusal to do it myself. How we get to the point, I agree, let's not do away with this construction permit and keep an eye on them. I guess I'm aware of it now, and this commission and the county commissions are aware of what's going on. I guess I'm just kind of looking for ways. Now we got a property that's been dug into the hill, and when I was going through this and I happened to notice the house further up, if this goes undone for X amount of time, we could end up with some shifting and so forth after it. And this come to my mind after looking at a property a couple of weeks ago where a landslide happened and piers are showing and so forth. And so that's my fear when people do stuff like this without the engineering reports. And I just want to give you kudos to the staff for being on top of this.
Thank you. One other comment, if you notice, there are two property owners on this, and we've been sending everything to both of them. We have heard that Mr. Nibel is looking to relocate out of the state, well, out of the county. So we're going to keep up on this.
Any further questions for staff? Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Maybe you could help me understand, kind of in layperson's language, what the city requirements are going to be for a building permit. You know, it's on page 7, under H. You know, it gives H4, it gives quite a long list of things, but maybe you could just help me understand, you know, in a nutshell, what all that means.
So what the city is that's for their, he wanted to plat that land, so where you see like that V kind of come off right there, he wanted to plat that into 2 lots. And this lot's within the city's 3-mile platting jurisdiction. So what H is in the staff report is their requirements for what it would take to plat that off. And from my understanding, it required quite a lot of drainage improvements and a detention pond. And it kind of sounded like
And re-engineering School Drive, it sounds
yeah,
like.
yep. And from conversations with the city, it never went, this is just like their layout kind of subdivision thing, kind of like our layout plat is. And it sounds like the applicant hasn't submitted anything else after this. It kind of just ended and nothing's else has been submitted with the city.
They could, assuming, you know, if they move ahead with this construction permit and meet the requirements and come to compliance, they could get a building permit for just a single building without this replatting to split this in 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, from my conversations with him, so you can see the structure up in the top right
Yes.
here.
Uh-huh.
That's a multifamily dwelling. That's also the applicant's land. That's from conversations with him. That's what he wants to do over here is build another multifamily dwelling, which he can do with a conditional use permit, but he can't get a conditional use permit until he's kind of
Right.
come into compliance with the construction stuff.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
I'm sorry, he can't get a conditional use permit until he complies with the city's requirements for replatting?
No, with ours, because he's still in violation, correct? Yes.
Yeah.
He's still in violation with the county for the construction permit because he hasn't met conditions, and he's still has a stop work order out
I
on that
see.
on that property.
Thank you.
Any further questions? for
Mr.
staff?
Chair, I just would like to understand the path forward. So let's assume he stops writing, responding, et cetera, to the county. What's the county's path forward?
Good question.
There's a couple of options that we have under 507A. One of them is we can declare it a nuisance. If we do that under statute, we can go in and abate it and then assess his property. We have done that on another property that's similar, that had similar issues, not construction, but there was other issues. The other is require a performance bond, him to post a performance bond. But if he's not responsive, I doubt that he would post a performance bond, so the nuisance, declaring it a nuisance and abating it would be our option.
Okay. And did I hear that correct? The property upstream, so let's say the cut slope decides to slough off and part of the uphill property sloughs into the excavation, that's his property upstream?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions.
Any further questions for staff?
I have one.
Go ahead, Jim.
How long, maybe I missed that when Rich asked, how long might we wait? I mean, how do you, are you gonna contact him every 30 days? You're gonna, or what's the time frame here?
We have this up for review again in front of you on March 25th. During that time, we are going to contact him and let him know that these are the options and this is the recourse, which would be to declare it a nuisance and
Okay.
abate it.
And he'll be made clearly and fully aware of the,
Yes, he will be sent a letter by certified
Okay.
mail.
all right, good.
Yes, go ahead, Kathy.
Ask a follow-up to Rich's question. So, I think it was Rich, but, so, I mean, when I drove out there, the cut, is to the, if north is straight up, it's to the north and to the right here, right? So the property that could be impacted if it started sloughing off is the one that's to the northeast, right? The one that,
This one.
that one?
This one. Yes.
And that's not Mr. Nibel's property, is it?
No, it is not.
No. His is to the northwest.
Correct.
So they could, I mean, it strikes me as that they could cause trouble for that other landowner, the other property owner that's to the northeast up there, because that's the one that's just right above the face of that cut.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Any further questions for staff? Any members of the audience here to speak on this item? Current recommendation is to approve the extension of construction permit CP 18-12 with the following 14 conditions. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 14.
Okay, item number 14 is layout plat 1738. This one has been on your agenda for more than a year. There was some estate issues and some property sales that needed to happen in order for them to move forward with this request. But they have met those conditions. They have submitted their permits and things to be able to move forward with this. So they are requesting to create lots A, B, C, and D of Johnson Estate subdivision. As it exists today, it's 21.39 acres. It's zone limited agriculture district. It's off of West Highway 44. There's no special flood hazard area on this property. And there are two single-family residences on this property. One was built in 1920 and one was built in 1991. So this plat would also correct some of those violations of having the two residences on that lot. They are proposing the lots, 4 lots, one 2.714 acres, one 4.701 acres, one 6.746 acres, and one 8.249 acres. This was routed through the interdepartmental review process, and no major items of concern came up except for there is a cesspool on the property that serves Lot B, or that would be considered proposed Lot B. That is the permit that they did come in and get. They did hire an installer to replace that system with a conventional system. In addition, there were some comments from the Register of Deeds that they want some changes to the plat heading, and the equalization would like them to add in the plat heading that there is a well lot as part of this plat. So staff is recommending approval of this layout plat with 14 conditions.
Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chairman, I have one question, and I didn't look it up. I apologize. Does the lot size meet the minimum requirements for the size, given the zoning?
No, it does not. And the next request, the next agenda item is for them to rezone these from limited agriculture district to suburban residential.
I see. Thank you.
Any further questions for staff? Any members of the audience like to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, we have current recommendation is to approve layout plat PL 1738. Wait a minute, am I reading the right one? Yeah. Approval of layout plat PL 38 to the February 11 Planning Commission meeting with the following 14 conditions.
I would so move.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 15.
Who made the motion? I'm sorry. For approval?
Who made the motion?
I did.
Jim.
Who seconded that?
I did.
Kathy. I was trying to remember which one did it.
Yeah, so I apologize. The motion should just be staff recommends approval of layout plat with 14 conditions.
I was wondering,
The
that's why I was like,
February
wait, that was
11th,
kind of
not
weird. I was
the-
like, okay.
I apologize.
Right here. It's just.
Oh, it wasn't quite right on the, right here where the recommendation was. So the recommendation is to approve.
Correct, with 14 conditions.
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve layout plat PL 1738 with the following 14 conditions.
And I would so move
And I'll second.
that.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you for that correction. That's why I was like, wait a minute, maybe I messed something up, but. Item number 15.
And item number 15 is rezone 1710 and comprehensive plan amendment 1709 is to rezone 21.39 acres from limited agriculture district to suburban residential district. They are requesting this in order to plat. It is a condition of their layout plat. The surrounding zoning in the area is in harmony with this. It abuts suburban residential. There is significant suburban residential in this area. The future land use of this property is plan unit development sensitive. It is surrounded by Forest Service to the north and to the west. So staff is recommending approval of rezone 1710 and comprehensive plan amendment 1709 because it is in harmony with the surrounding zoning districts.
Any questions to staff on this item? All right, the current recommendation is staff recommends approval of rezone 1710 and comprehensive plan amendment CA 17-09. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the rezone of 17-10 and comprehensive plan amendment 17-09.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Takes us to item number 16.
Good morning, Cassie Bolstead, Assistant Planning Director. Item 16 is a layout plat request. This is LPL 1901 to combine 4 lots to create Union Hill Climax. The applicant is Donald Patno, the landowner is Jane Patno. As this property exists today, it is 4 separate lots. All the lots are zoned general agriculture district. The future land use is planned unit development sensitive. There is no special flood hazard area on any of these properties, and it currently exists as 4 mining claims, each of roughly around 10 acres. What they're wanting to do is combine all 4 of these into 1 lot, which would be 40.51 acres, which would meet the minimum lot size requirement for general agriculture district. So they would not be required to rezone or do a lot size variance at this time. Access to the proposed lot is provided via a 40-foot wide private access easement. That looks like it already existed prior to this. This was routed through the interdepartmental review process. A couple notes that I do want to make. The County Highway Department stated that the landowner must obtain access easements or right-of-way to Burnt Fork Road or China Gulch Road if they're not already obtained to prevent this from being an isolated tract. An FLPMA private road easement through the Forest Service is in place to provide access to these properties off of Log Cabin Road. Staff does have documentation of that, has verified that that is filed with the Register of Deeds, and a condition of approval has been added that they denote that 40-foot wide private access easement, the book and page number that exists in for the minor plat. The Register of Deeds stated that they do suggest a different proposed legal description for the plat. They suggest either Union Hill Group Tract or Union Hill Tract, which can be changed at the minor plat phase. And then Emergency Services did state that they have no problem with the consolidation, but that the private drive that provides access will need to be given a name and addresses issued accordingly if and when they decide to build on it. Currently, all 4 of these are vacant, so that wouldn't be something that would need to be done now, but it would be something that would need to be done prior to construction on that. Per a document submitted by the applicant, the sole reason for the consolidation is to reduce property taxes. And the proposed plat would decrease density in the area by 3 lots, so staff does not find any significant issues with this request. Staff is recommending approval of layout plat LPL 1901 with 11 conditions.
Any questions for staff? Any members of the audience like to speak on behalf of this item?
Good morning, Commissioners. Don Patnell here. Just for clarification on the recommendations that, the proposed plat be completed by a registered land surveyor. Yeah, in contact with Francis Metter Gillhouse to complete that if we get the green light here this morning. Second thing, the minor plat, we'll come up with a better name for the replat. Question on number 5, asking for a percolation test as part of this minor plat. Could we get that postponed until we get a building permit someday, or does it need to be done with a platting process? I guess more of a question.
That is something that is oftentimes through a subdivision regulations variance with the minor plat. You can do those together, and it's often requested to be waived because it is something that's required through a building permit process. So we can go through that process with your minor plat.
Okay, thank you. And then the item as it relates to the emergency management system, there are 2 residents on this easement currently, and they have a address of Log Cabin Road. So I think it would create some confusion if we had to rename that private easement to something else, because my neighbors are already using a Log Cabin Road address.
And that would probably be something that we could discuss with 911 as well, if and when you decided to submit a building permit application. That was just their recommendation. Generally, if there's that many houses off of an easement, they like to see it named something different for emergency purposes so that it's easier for 911 to know that you go onto a different road versus kind of stay on Log Cabin this way and Log Cabin this way. But that's something that we could discuss with 911 prior to that. If 911 does want it renamed, and that's absolutely a definite thing, then it would go through the process of the road naming, and the other 2 addresses would get changed to the different road name.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies everything for me.
All right, does anybody have any questions for? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? If not, how would we reword item number 5 if we're gonna waive? I know we see it all the time, waiving the percolation test and stuff. What's the best way to reword that if we're gonna move forward with this, approving it and waiving that?
Well, item number 5, the way that it's worded already, allows them to either submit the percolation test and soil profile information or request the subdivision regulations variance. That's the standard way that we word that, because then with the minor plat, they can request that subdivision regulations variance and fulfill that requirement.
So we have to change anything at this point?
No.
All right. Any other questions for staff? If not, current recommendation is approval of layout plat PL 1901 with the following 11 conditions.
So
I s-
moved.
I so move.
Moved by Rich and second by Sandy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. That takes us to item number 17.
Actually, Mr. Chair, Mr. Nybel is in the audience today and would like to speak on his item. The Planning Commission has the option to make a motion to reconsider item 13.
Is the planning commission willing to make a motion to reconsider item number 13?
I'll make the motion to reconsider item number 13.
Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, no. Just one no.
Who said no?
No.
Jim,
2 noes.
Lloyd and Jim, no. Motion carries. That brings us back to item number 13. All right, sir. Have you been told what was done?
Well, that's what I wanted to find out, is what was decided. I had sent an email in to tell them that I wanted to cancel the permit because at this time the weather is not, I can't do any building or do any work down there anyway because of the conditions and stuff like that. So I just wanted to cancel it until the weather improved and then come back in to get a new permit later.
Well, since there's been a lot of work already done on it, we decided that we were going to continue the current permit so that
Okay.
work can still be done so you can bring it into compliance. Because if we cancel it, then you're still out of compliance and there's some other issues out there.
Okay,
So that's what we made a decision to do, is to continue it so that the construction permit is still in effect. Right, approval, extension of construction permit, and that way you can still work to get everything into compliance.
okay. Well, I don't have a problem with that, but I just, because of the weather and the conditions, I can't do anything down there anyway. So I just wanted to cancel the permit until later, and I'm working with a different engineer to try and get the site plan and that kind of stuff done. But there's not a whole lot he can do as far as topographical with all the snowbanks and things like that there either, I don't think. I haven't talked to him, I haven't asked him that, but
Okay?
I'm assuming that's not something that he can do right now.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Sir, what is your schedule for getting the work done on the site and bringing it into compliance?
Well, I don't know what all I need to get it into compliance. I put down straw mats and I put down gravel on the driveway, and I know I've got to do the inspections, but right now with the ground frozen and the snow, there's not, it's generally the same all the time, so.
I believe you still have to do the inspections. I mean, you would just note the current conditions of the site.
Okay. Well, I can get those. I've got some that are done through December. I can get the rest of those in.
Because I believe the staff report indicated that they haven't received any of that information from
Yeah.
you, and
Well,
so that's
like I say,
concerning on our
My plan
end.
was just to cancel the permit until later and then start again, but I didn't realize that you were gonna keep the permit active, so.
Any
And
further?
as far as what else I need to get it in compliance, I guess I'll have to talk to PJ, and I think the site plan is one of the only things I got left on there as far as stabilization, but I don't know.
Everything's written in the staff report then, and I guess if you have questions, I would suggest that you do get with staff and go through these specific requirements for the site.
Okay. All right, well, I guess if it's still active, then I'll just have to get with them and find out what else they want me to do there.
Any further questions for?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to reiterate what he had said. I mean, in the staff reports, I'll say, you need to get your paperwork in. They're going to keep this construction permit open till it gets into compliance, and that's the sole purpose of it.
Okay,
So
all right,
please take the time to work with the staff and get into compliance. Otherwise, it could create more hardship.
okay, I'll do that.
And I'm going to encourage you to stay after the meeting and get in contact with PJ today and see exactly what needs to be done, because some of the stuff that's talked about in the conditions is, an erosion control measure is being implemented immediately. So there's obviously some concern with some issues, so those are going to have to be done.
Okay,
Okay?
all
Any
right.
further
I'll do that.
questions?
Yep,
Any questions for staff? Thank you very much, sir.
yep, thank you.
So with Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna ask the same question with reconsideration. Do we have to vote on it again or?
That's,
Okay.
Shaking her head no, so.
no, since we've already established that it needs to go forward, we just brought it so we could hear what he had to say. It didn't change any of our motions. Do you have something to add, PJ?
Nope, I was just up here for the next item.
Okay. Anything further on this item before we move on to item number 17? All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, did I misunderstand that? Do we have to vote on this item again?
No, we don't. We already gave a recommendation on it. We only reconsidered it to hear what he had to say. If it may have changed our mind to go a different way with it.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Michelle, is that what I'm understanding with your nod back there? Okay. Item number 17.
Item number 17, County Board Report. The Board of Commissioners concurred with the Planning Commission's recommendations from the January 14th, 2019 and January 28th, 2019 meetings, with the exception of Rezone 1812 and Comprehensive Plan Amendment 1811 for Borglum Historic Center Incorporated. Dwayne Pankratz, Ken Nash is the agent. The Board of Commissioners approved the first reading to rezone the subject property to general commercial district.
Anybody have any questions about that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
You know, we listened to quite a bit of comments at the Planning Commission meeting, and I'm just curious if somebody can give me some clue as to how or why the commissioners changed our recommendation, just for educational purposes.
Would you like to do that one?
We took a lot of public comment, probably about the same as what you took. I think it was presented to the commission with a recommendation without prejudice. Denial without prejudice. I can't speak for every commissioner of why they voted the way they did. I can say, I think when it first came forward, part of it was general commercial, and the other half was
Highway service. What it is now or what it's going to?
when it first came forward, it had just the billboards as general commercial, and the rest was left
Currently general ag.
general ag, if I remember right. So a lot of discussion. You heard the same thing, yet we had the commissioner here who, at our meeting that was at yours, and can't tell you.
There was new sorry.
Go ahead.
There was new information given to staff after the meeting from the agent, that they do have access off of the highway. They're not planning on using the one across the section line and in the road district, that they will have access off the highway.
I see.
He wasn't 100% sure of that, so he didn't want to say anything during the meeting. I don't know if that would have changed the Planning Commission's decision. It was brought up during the Board of Commissioners meeting. Also, the different experiences of the different board members, I'm sure, led into how they
Sure.
perceive the property, so.
Yeah, I understand.
So that access off the highway to get to the billboards, is that the access that they
I believe
determined
that's
that
where
they
they're
have
gonna go.
access to that?
And if they have to, in time, they'll build a turning lane. We have an email from Mike Carlson with DOT that they've talked with Ken about
A
that.
turning lane off of, what was it, Pine Crest?
No, off the highway.
Off the highway.
Oh,
That was information that this planning commission did not have.
I see.
I remember that. Thanks, PJ. That was probably the key point, because I remember when it first come forward, the road district and everything else was against it. But I think
Sure.
that was probably, I think PJ's right. That was the turning point with the other access.
Yeah, and I felt the comment that the general commercial use would probably use less water than if it were zoned for housing up there. You know, and that made some sense, so, thank you.
Any further questions on any of those items? Anything for us, PJ, out of that?
Nope.
Nope. All right, that takes us to item number 18, items from the public. Anybody from the public like to come forward? Seeing none, items from the staff. Number 19, is there any additions to this?
There will be. Hold on.
Okay. Figure I'd ask ahead of time.
Sorry about that. So item A is building permit for 2019 January, down 31% over this time last year, but the valuation of the items that were permitted are up over about 47% for this time last year. Not much to talk about for the first month.
Any questions for staff? All right. B.
Yep. Item B is from request from Rick Russ from Matrix, that any comments that the Planning Commission has, and I'll also mention this to the board, is you can email him through the website and he'll put it into that Excel matrix that he has that you guys got at the last meeting. And then just a reminder, because I know it came up this morning, that the next Planning Commission meeting, we're going to start the review of the comprehensive plan.
Absolutely. Yes, go ahead.
I would like to ask a question. If it's not quite the right time or place, let me know. But, you know, I was thinking about the new future land use map. And what's the procedure, the process that either has been used or is being used or will be used to take, existing land that's already zoned something? Let's say, let me think, the one that's going away is the low-density residential? Is
It's
that
not going away, it's just being redefined.
Yeah, I mean, but there's two options for it, right?
More so for suburban. I know what you're saying, it's getting split.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So how does what's the process used to decide in a case like that, which one of those, the two new ones it will be assigned to?
Yep. So that's the ongoing problem with all of these. It's not an easy process. And the first thing you have to do before we can redefine them is figure out what the uses are going to be in those districts. Now, the comprehensive plan doesn't define those uses. The comprehensive plan has, bless you, has an example of what some of those uses will be. They're defined in the zoning ordinance. So it's kind of an overlap between doing the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan kind of simultaneously. It's not an easy process.
But
And then also notifying the landowners of what's coming up, what the change could be,
Right.
making it as public as possible. There hasn't been, unfortunately, as much interest as we thought in the comprehensive plan, even though it has a huge impact. I mean, we've been at it for 3 years. I mean, it's been talked about for 5 since I've been here.
When, at the end of the day here, at the end of this process, when a comprehensive plan is approved, will part and parcel of that approval be approval of that future land use plan and with those new zoning designations?
Part and parcel, yes.
So that process of deciding which, which fork they're gonna take,
Yep.
has to be done by the time this is actually approved.
Which fork, you mean what the new designation of that lot's going to be?
Yes.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be done very close and the comp plan probably after. There's gonna be a lot, this is not gonna be a short process.
It's gonna be a long process.
It is, absolutely. We have over 40,000 lots in the
Yeah.
county.
So will each landowner be notified individually that,
Well, that was my I've asked Rick about this because this is what he does for a living, and he says different jurisdictions do it different ways. If something's going to get changed, then definitely you want to let the landowner know, which we would anyway.
Yes,
We would want them to know probably through a regular first-class mailing, not necessarily certified
right,
right now.
yes,
And then he says that you can go through and approve doing rezonings kind of in bulk for certain areas.
Okay.
Right now, what he's doing is putting together a paper map and a PDF that breaks the county down into sections, because you can't really see a lot of definition in
I
the
know,
in the
I
PDF
tried
that-
looking at that,
Right, so what their recommendations would be for new areas,
Mm-hmm.
he's gonna get that information
I
for
see,
us.
okay.
Yeah.
You know, one other comment that I had when I was studying that future land use map, this weekend is that because of the size, some of those lots are pretty small. I mean, I'm talking now out in the Black Hills area, that western part. And the logos or icons that identify like Highway 16 and different towns, they're big relative to the lot size. So sometimes you can't really see, they occlude the lots that are underneath. And I don't really know how the final map should be to prevent that problem, but somehow you need to give that a little thought.
And these are the type of comments that you can definitely send to him and he'll
Send to him,
respond.
okay.
And we're going to put, all the information from the meetings is going to be on the View to 2040 website. So
Yeah,
we're going to keep everything up to date. So as new questions come in, he's going to add it to that matrix list with the answers, and it's all going to be on that website.
right. So those couple of comments that I had now this morning, the best way for me to do it is just to send them to him via that entry point on the website.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, very good.
And
Thank
that way
you.
it'll include it in the matrix.
Yes, gotcha, okay.
Any further questions, comments? All right, next item.
Next item is item C, 2019 Drug-Free Workplace Resolution and Workplace Affirmation Statement. This was sent out from our Human Resources Director as employees of the county. He asked that everybody read through that resolution and the extra sheet and then sign off on it, and then we can just keep it with our records upstairs for the Planning Commission. That was all on that one, just kind of is a little bit different, but just wanted to let you know.
Any questions on that? You're going to collect these today after the meeting?
If we could, that'd be great. Yes, please.
Okay. You're welcome. All right, next item.
All right, item D is an update on plat file codes. You'll notice as of plat 1902, it didn't happen in 1901, we're adding a 3-digit code, mainly so that when we look at a plat file, we know what it is and where it is in the process. So layout plats will be LPL, PL for plat. Minor plats will be MPL, which is what you had today. Preliminary plats, PPL. Final plats, which you don't see, will be FPL. We had to do a 3-digit because MPs can also be confused with mining permits instead of minor plat, and FPs for final plat could also be confused with floodplain permits. So it just helps staff at a glance that you know when you look at that file what it is, and not having to take the extra steps to click here, open that, open this. You just know. So it's more of a housekeeping thing for us, but it is something different. So I want to let you know why.
All right, any further questions? Next item.
Item E for the Kroll Incorporated BOC meeting dates. The Board of Commissioners approved special meeting hearing dates for May 10th, 2019, which is a Friday at 9 a.m. And if necessary, Saturday, May 11th at 9 a.m. And a reminder, yours is May 8th.
And ours starts at 3, if I remember correctly.
I believe so.
Any questions on that? Any added items?
The last item is a registration form that you have in front of you for 2019 Western South Dakota Hydrology Conference on April 11th, 2019 at the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center. Some staff do attend this. If any planning commissioners are interested in going, please get with Jerry, our administrative assistant, and she can get you signed up and take care of registration for you. Was there a deadline that needed to be done by, Jerry?
For the early, it's March 15th to get the early registration fee.
So it says before March 15th, so we need to know no later than March 14th.
Yeah.
Okay, save $30 a person that way.
Gotcha. Any questions about that item? All right, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, item 20, items from the membership. Anybody have anything? I have a question. What's the status of that new hire?
New hire, Jason will start on Monday, the 18th.
Okay. I just knew being a part of that process, I was like, all right, I hadn't seen him here, but I was like, when's this gonna happen? Make sure it's all still rolling.
Commissioner Johnson was as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And I asked the same question last week
Oh, did you?
offline, so.
We had to, he needed extra time to retire from the military, go through
Right.
that process and relocate.
Fair enough. All right. Any other items from the membership?
Yay.
Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.